My name's Lance from Queensland Tractor Spares. Welcome to Bundy Bear's shed. This afternoon we're going to put a seal kit through a set of 40-30 remote valves, and we're not going to do the main top of the valves, we're just going to do the couplers down the bottom. They were leaking oil out of the receptacles in the bottom, and which tells us that the valves up the top are leaking, but the customer doesn't want that done. He just wants the oil to stop leaking. So we're going to put a little kit through, and the kit's not expensive. It's a genuine John Deere kit we use. John Deere part number is AR82570, and we fitted many of these over the years. John Deere's have been our bread and butter for coming up 30 years, I suppose. And so anyway, we'll get set up and we'll show you what we get up to. This is one of the control valves that we're going to put the O-ring kit in. And if you look around the back of the old John Deere tractors, you would see many of these. And in the top here, it's a closed centre hydraulic system. And in the top here, there's 4 valves, 2 raised valves, 2 lower valves. We're not going to deal with them today, but these couplers are where the leak is. And they just get worn O-rings from time to time, so it's quite grubby. We'll actually take it out and clean it up first, and then we'll bring it back and we'll start knocking a few plugs out and just fitting some O-rings. It's that simple. Right, we've given it a bit of a bath. It was quite dirty, so we had to clean it up just to stop all the rubbish getting in, really. But on the bottom here, you have these taps, and with it open like that, the ball in the seat is closed and no oil comes past, or it shouldn't come past. These are leaking down the bottom here, so where this spindle is here, or the receptacle, it's actually leaking through there. And when you poke an end in and you turn that opens the ball up and lets your flow go right through. So at the start of the job, we're going to knock a couple of Welsh plugs out of the top here, and to retain these plugs, there's a little spring and a small E-clip, and they just about go west every time, but we'll try and keep it and see how we go. And there we go. Now, we pull them forward a bit so we can get access to the E-clip a little bit better. The E-clip has gone hiding down there on us. That's the little spring, and now that's out, these shafts will just pull straight out. And when it sits up in there, this little spring sits over there, and the E-clip goes in this groove here, and that holds the tension on it. So we'll get the other fella out. Look at that, we even didn't lose the E-clip either. Pop him out, put him aside. As with hydraulics, everything has to be really clean. So get it as clean as you can. Now, to get at the O-rings down in the body here, the easiest way is to pop this clip out. The little fella doesn't want to come today. We'll try this fella. There we go. Now, when these receptacles come out, there's balls there that lock everything in, and if you can pull the whole lot out together, you can save yourself a bit of a problem catching up with all those little balls. But sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, it just doesn't go your way. There goes a ball on the floor. Yeah, that's the receptacle as it sits in the machine. What's leaking on this one is that the seal around here must be leaking and letting the oil come past. But the O-ring on this shaft, and remember the shaft goes up through that way, and so it comes down here, the oil, and it looks like it's running down the tap. But the O-rings down here must be crooked too. But when you put the O-rings in, or when you put the receptacle back in, you'll notice at the top there, there's a flat. Underneath, there's no machining at all. So the tap goes up from the bottom, and that flat, that's where your spring sits. So anyway, we'll try and get the next one out without swearing at you. Just drop the ball. And there we go, there's a second receptacle out. Now, what we look for a good surface there so it can be resealed. We tidy this up here, we polish it. Sometimes we put them in a lathe and give them a polish. There's a small O-ring and a backup washer in here, and that seals the shaft. There's an O-ring and a backup washer in here, and that seals the male receptacle as it goes into it. And there is also a clip here in the end, and it leaks out of there sometimes, but this one doesn't do it. And so what the owner has asked for is just for us to reseal this cheaply and get it back to him just as soon as we can. So that's what this little video is about. This is our first video we've ever made, so we'll just see how it goes. There'll be a few hiccups and a few things that won't work properly or won't focus properly or sound won't work real good, but anyway, look, we'll soldier on, we'll work out what we're doing wrong, and yeah, we'll get it all back together. Now inside here, there's an O-ring and a backup, and in the kit, it's possible to have a V-seal in there or an O-ring with a white neoprene backup washer, or white nylon backup washer. And I'll try and show you what they look like. Now that there is a small V-seal, and in the housing, that sits in the housing, this slides into it, and it slides in like that, and the pressure of the oil on that lip seal actually pushes it harder to seal harder against this receptacle. That works in some areas, but experience has taught us that it doesn't work on everything. In some areas, when we used to work out west, some areas that would not work. And different soil conditions, it'd make it that you had to put the O-ring and the backup in the housing there. I preferred the V-seal because the hydraulics help you better, but anyway, we'll just see how it goes and see which one's in here and see which one we'll put back once we get them all out. I'll dig them out and give it all a bit of a wash, and I'll see you in a little while. Right, I had a bit of a change of heart. I thought I'd actually show you hooking the O-rings out, just so we could see what type they had in there. And these long snap-on O-ring picks are the go. They seem to work as good as anything. And this one's had the Reseal in. The Reseal's gone quite hard. So I would imagine that the lip here isn't pushing out where it should. That can indicate that the hydraulics in the tractor are getting too hot, or it can be as simple as old age. Yeah, they're very hard. I'll turn him over and we'll get the ones out of the back. Hopefully you can see that and I don't drop it. Sometimes these receptacles, they get a bit hard to push in and out, and when you push the male end up, they have to slide forward so that the tap can turn. And the tap sits against this little bracket here, and from the back of the tractor, when there's nothing in it, you pull the end out, it's like that, can't turn. When you push it in a little bit, you get the leverage on this corner here, push him in and it turns, and that opens up the oil supply. So with that, yeah, it's just make sure that that's all clean. And sometimes as they get old, these receptacles get hard to move in and out. And one thing that we don't have to worry about in this case, but in many other cases, is this sits in here, it sits out the back there. Because it's hard to push forward, people get a hammer or something and knock it forward. What happens then is that we get a burr on here. You must clean the burr off before you pull the receptacle out of the housing, or when you pull it out you can score the housing, and if you don't make sure it's gone before you put the receptacle back in again, when it comes back in, any rough edge on this surface here will tear your new seal, and yeah, it just won't last any time at all. So anyway, look, I'll pop some O-rings out of here. And because these have gone hard, in this instance I'm going to opt for putting the O-ring with the backup washer in. The O-ring will hold a different type of tension on the receptacle. I'll go and polish these surfaces. The front surface looks very good. The back surface, you know, it's a little bit chuffed, marked and that, so I'll do that. I'll pop the O-rings out, clean it up, polish it up, give it a good bath, and put some O-rings in, and we'll start putting them back together again. I've cleaned the housing out a little bit. I've put new O-rings in the housing. I didn't think it would be very good watching me putting O-rings in all day. I've put new O-ring and backup washers in the receptacles, and a new O-ring and backup washer where the shaft goes through. Now, as with all O-rings, and with the backup washer, the O-ring goes to the oil side, and the backup washer goes to protect the O-ring from when the pressure hits the O-ring. It'll distort it a bit, and it'll actually put it over to a sharp corner. It can cut without the backup washer. On doing clean up and checking, cleaning up these balls, somehow a couple of them had quite worn spots on them, and they're quite big flats on some. So it's just lucky I'm a bit of a hoarder, and I had a little packet in my toolbox. Like I said, I've done John Deere for a lot of years now, and I've been caught before where O-rings fall into the dirt, or you're out on a farm 30 kilometres from town, or you know, out in the red dirt or something like that, and an O-ring just disappears. And you can look and look and look, but it's just a waste of time and resources looking for them. So, see if you're looking for a mechanic to do your gear, look for someone with a toolbox full of junk, as in good junk, like spare ball bearings, spare nuts and bolts and things like that. Because, oh man, over the years they've got me out of trouble an awful lot of times, just having a few little extras in your toolbox. So what we're going to do now is we'll put the balls back in the receptacles, and there's 6 balls per receptacle, and they face down. When you drop an O-ring in here, it actually shoots across that way, and that's what locks it in. And so what I normally do is just put a little bit of grease in the hole, in each hole. And what that does is when we put the ball in, it holds it in there for us. There we go, 6 ball bearings in there. Now, if you keep it down that way, then the ball bearings can't fall out anyway. You notice earlier on that in this housing here, I'm just having a look, see how clear you can see it. In the housing here, I was undoing the circlip at the front, and by undoing the circlip at the front, the whole lot comes out. You don't have to undo that big circlip. If you just pull the taps out, you can get the receptacles out on their own, and they will come out on their own. But I've always made a practice of taking them out, because there can often quite be a bit of dirt down in behind there, and when you're putting O-rings and that in, everything needs to be very clean. So I pull them out just to be safe. Now, to put it back in again, this fella here, he just slides up over there, and now those balls are captive. They can't come out anymore. And so we normally put a swipe of grease in the bores, and that's just to help guide the O-ring in. And then nice and gently put it in. Now we have to line this up, line it up straight so that the tap goes in. So we have to make sure at this stage that the holes are nice and true. So we'll do that. We'll pop the taps in, and that receptacle can't come apart now. That's in there for good. If we tip the valve up, that receptacle will still be in there. I'll just do the other one. One, two. Good one. Okay, so we put it in there, a little bit of grease. On these receptacles here, I did have to take a little burr, and I probably could have got away without doing it, but what's the point? You know, we're here to do a good job, and there's not a chance of that ever cutting the O-ring. You see the other receptacle, they're just pushed in very easily, and that's what we're looking to do. So we'll try this one out. We'll put the collar on. We'll put the collar on first. Make sure we keep the flat to the top. And there you go, we're in. Nothing to it, eh? Now if I find the little handle here, pop that in, that locks them back. Then when you pull the receptacle out, it goes forward and your taps go straight. When your taps go straight, the balls inside are on their seat so no oil can come out. I'll just raise the camera up a little bit and we'll see how we go. Now look, the fiddliest part of this whole job, I'll try and get the camera down in there. If you see where the little tap shafts are sitting in, that's not looking too bad I suppose. We have to get a little spring and a little E-clip in down on that hole, and that can be quite a trick. So I'll get over here and have a bit of a go, see how we go. The springs are tapered, the fat end of the spring goes downwards. We'll slide that collar forward a bit just for the moment. That's the other one. Slide the collar forward just out of the way a little bit. Now John Deere or someone made this great little E-clip tool. Got a little fork in it, you can pop the E-clip in and hopefully you can get that through, but in all their wisdom they didn't give you room to use the tool properly. So we'll have a bit of a go and just see if we can keep the O-rings coming. I'll keep the E-clip coming. So we have to depress the spring first, then pop the clip in. I'll tell you that just went straight in. That's the easiest kill I've had in a long time. We'll see if we can be lucky on the next one. Getting old's no good. You need these things on your head, and you've got to put them on to see up close, and you've got to take them off to see long, and I don't know, no future in it. Well, there you go, here's me telling you it was hard. And they just fell in on this one. Just lucky, that's how it goes some days. I thought seeing as everyone was watching it, it'd probably take me all day, but anyway. Now we have to put these clips back in, and I always put them in with the gap in the circlip to the bottom. And the reason I do that is if any dirt gets in there, any water, anything like that, it's got a chance of coming out the bottom. It's not captive, but it just can't get stuck in there. Slide that fella back in. That's there. Now we need to replace the Welsh plugs in the top. They're just a dome, they're not a cup. And we pop them in the hole there. There's no need to put sealer around those because they're in this open cavity anyway. So, and if they sit in properly, they're doing their job. So we'll just give them a bit of a tap. Give this fellow one. And that's got them all locked in. Now that's this job done. There's a few things other people that have done it may do differently. I've done it this way for many years now, and with other people doing it differently, their ways are good too, no doubt. It just means there's a couple of ways of doing one job. A lot of people I know don't take that outer ring out. You can do it just as quickly without taking that ring out, but I like to, just to make sure it's clean in there. It does make it a bit easier, I find, to get the O-rings in the back there. These are all working nice and freely now. You should be able to push them back and forth with your hand. The next thing I would normally do is plug a male end up there and pump it up with the porta power. These tractors sit on anywhere from 2200 to 2950 psi. That's pounds per square inch, so I'd probably take that up to 2900 psi on the porta power, just to make sure they're not leaking. We won't do that today, but not on video anyway. We haven't got the facility in the shed here to do that at the moment. But all in all, it's not a bad job. The John Deere kit has plenty of bits and pieces in it. One thing I didn't mention was when you get your kit from John Deere, open it up. On the sheet, I'll see if I can get that clear for you. On the sheet it actually tells you what's there, what's in the kit. Have a bit of a look first and just make sure all the parts are in the kit. And on the next page on the kit, it actually has the quantities and the part numbers and all that. So if you actually do bugger up a part, and it'll happen, sure as eggs are eggs, one day you'll bugger it. And you have the numbers or the part numbers there to get it. There's no aftermarket kits for this job, to my knowledge. In Queensland Tractor Spares, we do sell a lot of aftermarket parts, but on some of these old jobs like the John Deere remotes, there's no aftermarket kit available, and I'm pretty sure that if there was an aftermarket kit available, I wouldn't use it. John Deere have very good quality O-rings. A lot of them have little yellow dots on them. They're 90 duro, which means they're a hard O-ring. And with tractor parts, price does play a bit of a thing in it, but quality is what you want. The aftermarket people, they do a great job, and we sell an awful lot of aftermarket parts, like I said, but every company that sells aftermarket parts have a little bit of their product range that's not as good as it could be, and through our shop we sort that out. If we know there's a problem with a part, it's gone. We won't use it. We won't pass it on to our customers. We get rid of it. We bring it to their attention that it's no good, and on our computer system at Queensland Tractor Spares, we can highlight that part so it never gets sold again. And from time to time, the parts that we've banned from the shop, to say, for another way of saying it, we do buy them again and just check how they're going. But with John Deere, with these kits, you just can't go wrong. But anyway, look, this is the first video we've done, and we'll hopefully do a few more. There'll be a few on repairing tractor parts. We've got a few water pump kits to fit to my tractors. My hobby is doing up vintage machinery. So there'll be quite a bit of machining. I love machining. Every weekend I'm in the shop. As soon as, actually before the sun's up some mornings, I'm off. I have something to eat and a cup of tea, or head off up the back with the shed with the dogs. And nothing finer than spending the day up here. And I fiddle all day, and sometimes I don't get a lot done because I get a lot of visitors for a chat, and other days I get a heap done. But it's about being here enjoying shed life. And so anyway, I hope you enjoyed our first video. We'll get more up and running, and we'll have a good look at this one and see what we could improve on it, and there'll be plenty. And we've got a Rode mic on top of the camera there, and we're trying that out. It's a directional microphone, because out here sometimes you do get other noise, like a light buzzing or an aeroplane going overhead. So we've gone for a Rode shotgun mic on top of the camera. the camera's a Panasonic FZ200. It's a bridge camera, it does good photos for the shop, for our parts, for our website, and hopefully it does good video. So we'll see, we're a bit new at this, but we'll give it a go and see. But our channel is Bundy Bear. Bundy Bear's been my name for years on old machinery forums and the Tom forum and things like that. A lot of people will recognise that. So we thought we'd go with Bundy Bear. We live in Bundaberg, where they make the best rum in the world, and they have a big white bear. I'm going a bit white, but I'm the other Bundy Bear, yeah. And big fella, live in Bundaberg, so that'll do. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Please subscribe to our channel, put some comments in, and hopefully over the time that we're doing the videos we get to know you all a bit better, and looking forward to any input you can give us. Thanks for watching. I'll catch up later.